last podcast for the day is with a friend, Lameen.
Hi, Tarek.
Brother, good to see you. And good to see you in the Knowledge Summit in its 10th season. And I know why you're here. I really do. Guys, I'm sitting with a friend who is the most knowledgeable person I met. We worked together a long time ago during FII.
Yes, that's right. About 4 years ago, yeah.
4 years ago?
Yeah.
And he's someone who's a laureate of a Nobel Peace Prize.
That's right, yes.
A coffee lover, someone who worked with coffee a lot as a personal passion. He loved coffee so much, he worked with it. He worked in coffee. And then you worked for the UN as well?
Yes, for about 14 and a half years.
14 and a half years.
Yes.
And you won the Nobel Peace Prize because of the brilliant work that you've done in Iraq.
Yes, so there were two areas, if I can explain. So I used to work for the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the UN specialized agency for nuclear science and technology. So in the IAEA...
Told you he's smart.
At the IAEA, there's two parts. There's what we call using the technology for development and peace, which is the area that I worked for. And the other part of the IAEA, which is termed the nuclear watchdog, is safeguarding the safe uses of nuclear science and technology. So I worked more on the promotion of it from a safe aspect. So for example, using the technology for building cancer hospitals, for food security, for managing water resources, of course, nuclear power, which, as you know, in the UAE, they have nuclear power. One of my biggest projects when I first joined was creating Zambia's first cancer hospital, which to date has probably treated almost 30,000 people. So it opened in 2007.
Wow.
So doing the whole planning for Zambia. So looking like training their staff, building a teaching hospital. So, some of the things we're talking about at this conference is, it talks about knowledge, but I always think knowledge is one thing and you can access that very easily. But I wonder why nobody's talking about wisdom, because wisdom is when you apply knowledge. I can know anything. I can pick up my phone now and just say, tell me about this. I can know the history of something, but what does that mean in context back then and now?
Wow. So, Lameen, we were talking yesterday and Ron Young told me something that I knew, but I never thought about.
Yeah.
I told him we live in an area where we live in an era where knowledge is so available.
That's right.
And it's never been available as much as it is today. And then he answered something that blew my mind. He goes, no, information is available, but knowledge isn't necessarily there.
Yeah.
He goes, see, when we have a lot of information, then it's our responsibility to turn that into knowledge.
Yeah.
Because information on its own. And then there was Niyoki, a Japanese gentleman in the same podcast, who said in Japan they have this term called ba, and what it means is knowledge on its own cannot be looked at. It's knowledge when it connects with a human being.
Yeah.
So information when it connects, because let's say we have all the libraries in the world.
Yeah.
We have all the chat GBTs in the world.
Yeah.
We have all the information at our fingertips, but it's still disconnected from the individual.
That's right.
Then it's useless.
Exactly.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
And then there's a verse in the Quran that says, كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. He goes, if you have the information, but you don't use it, it's exactly like being a donkey with a saddle full of books on your back.
That's true. That's very poignant.
A donkey with all the surgery books in the world, I will never let him operate on me.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, look, it's not going to look pretty.
Yes, exactly.
So it's lovely how all of that, but you named it wisdom.
Yeah. Well, I always think about the concept of, so basically, traditionally societies were, I think we've talked about this before, were built on what they call the four main virtues. So it was courage, wisdom, justice, and temperance. And wisdom, let's just hone in a little bit on that. Wisdom is when you basically apply knowledge in different contexts. So you can know something like, I like the way you talked about it, like information. Then when you apply that in a human context, you know something. But of course, as you know something and apply it, they begin to get wise about its application in different contexts. So you might know, like, yes, if I drive 70 miles per hour in my car, I might get a place that's 70 miles in an hour. But if you leave at, let's say, 5 p.m. during rush hour, no, you're not going to get there in an hour. It might take you 2 or 3 hours, right?
That's wisdom.
Yeah, so that's you're applying that wisdom into like context, put into a different environment. And I think sometimes we focus too much on information as we're doing now, and then knowledge. But I think wisdom is really the crux where we say, okay, this is how we really transform people's lives and societies.
Look, I know you have a speech soon.
Yeah.
And I know this podcast isn't going to be long,
Okay.
but I'm holding you accountable to another podcast where we need to talk a lot more in depth. But I have one more question for you.
Sure.
You know, how do you bring all this beautiful past, very diverse past,
Yeah.
where you worked with the International Nuclear Energy Agency,
Yeah.
you worked with coffee, you worked with the UN,
Yeah.
you worked with FII,
Yeah.
you're an advisor to very powerful people, very smart people.
Yeah.
How do you bring all of that together in what you're doing next?
Yeah. So that's a very good question. I've been thinking a lot about that. And I thought, how can I merge all my experience into some kind of framework? I call it the impact framework, which starts for intention, mastery, planning, action, connection, and transformation.
Wait, intention, mastery, planning,
Action,
action,
connection,
connection.
and transformation.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I told you he's smart.
So whether it was like when I ran my coffee shop for about 3 years, we broke even in 11 months. What are the experiences and lessons from that? Or whether I was trying to build Zambia's first comprehensive cancer hospital, or whether it was, when I worked with the UK government, trying to create the World Trade Organization, all these lessons, bring that all onto the table. And don't get me wrong, this impact framework is based on my experience. And some of it might be slightly outdated, but that's not the issue. The issue is that when I want to transform this to leaders, is to say, okay, where are you? And this is where I am. How can we work together and co-create something that could be meaningful for you? But when you look at the concept of impact, we're looking about legacy, not just what's happening now. So you might want to I want to work with people who want to create a legacy that's beyond profits. The concept of dignity over just profits, the concept of sharing knowledge and wisdom, how we can transform societies and people within our communities. That's what I would love to do. And I'm looking forward to exploring that later with you, and perhaps on the next time we chat.
Absolutely.
A bit more depth.
Lameen, it's I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it is to catch up, and I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it is to have a conversation with you in the Knowledge Summit. These places these platforms are created to people like you, honestly.
Thanks a lot.
It's an absolute honor to have you on the podcast, and it's an absolute honor to have you as a friend.
Thanks a lot, Tarek.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for having this brief but to be continued discussion.
Definitely, I look forward to it, Tarek.
Thank you, Lameen.
Thanks.